Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Vision 6 Power Session, Building an e-newsletter from Scratch. My name's Andy. I'm the Customer Marketing Manager here at Constant Contact. I'll be taking you through today's session. Now, when it comes to building a newsletter or anything from scratch from Vision 6 for emails, SMS, that kind of thing, it's always important to think about, firstly, what are the goals? Why are we sending this communication? It's okay to say that we're just sending an email for the point of sending the email, but generally it's a good idea to have a think about why we're doing this. What do we want the user to do at the end of the day when they receive this communication from us? And that can help us with the tone of the messaging, also the content, that kind of thing. It's also a great idea to have a look at how the last one performed. And in Vision 6, you can jump into the reports section there and have a look to see what articles got click-throughs, what people were interested in, what the open rate was, that kind of thing. And that can give you a really good idea or a feel for what your contacts are enjoying from a content point of view. And then you can weave that into the narrative for the next newsletter that you design. So also have a think about what content and articles should you feature. Can you align with any current trends? So if there's anything trending in your particular industry at the moment, perhaps use that in your newsletter as well. That can generally increase your open rate, especially if you're using some of those keywords and trending topics in your subject line as well. And that will increase engagement and that kind of thing through your newsletter. Also, when you're planning your email or SMS, have a think about what personalization you can include in the content, or in the case of an email, in the subject line as well. Now, normally the minimum people do is using the person's first name. So that's a good personalization element that you can use if you've got that available. That will increase opens as well. But there's a lot more you can do from the actual email itself in terms of changing the content that's inside the email. With personalization being the engine that powers that. So we'll go through an example of that too to show you how that works. Also, when you're planning your newsletter, have a think about what imagery you can use. Vision 6 has a great Canva integration now, so you can pull in any banners or assets that you might have created in Canva, of course, into the system. But we also have a stock photo integration as well that you can use for free. So it's a great idea or a great way to get a whole bunch of new image assets that you may not have had access to previously. So it's a great way to make your newsletter interesting, fun, and different from week to week or month to month as well. If you're sending out your newsletter and your contacts are seeing the same header graphic every single time, they may get a little confused and think, oh, is this the one from last week or this week? Or, oh, I'll just delete it, I don't have time. Whereas if you're changing up the graphics, it makes it new and exciting and interesting for your users to have a look at the email that you're sending them. And also have a look at what's the best day to send. So on the Vision 6 website, if you go to Resources, Email Metrics, this fantastic report here will open up, and it shows you at the moment the date of highest click-throughs or is currently set to Friday. And we update this monthly. So definitely have a look in here to see what date is getting best click-through rates and that kind of thing. So you've got open rates and click-through rates here on this graph. And a bit further down, you can also see that you can select your industry to see where you compare versus the standard open rate or click-through rate for the different industries. So just have a look and see where you compare. And of course, your Vision 6 reports where you could look to see what your emails are doing. Now, when you're building a newsletter or in your email, it's good to have some bits and pieces ready to go, some things prepared. So the content, if you are using your newsletter as a summary, it's always a good idea, of course, to have the links ready to link to the full articles that might be on your website or your blog. Doing it that way is actually good from an SEO or search engine optimization point of view as well. Having regularly updated content on your website is a good thing in Google's eyes. And this having a newsletter to drive people there to read the full articles is also a good way to get that traffic who may not normally visit your site to do so, to read more, learn more about your services, that kind of thing. If you have any Vision 6 forms as well, maybe you've built a survey form in Vision 6, or you have another list as like an event RSVP list, and that's got a form attached to it where your contacts can RSVP, have those Vision 6 forms ready to go as well, so you can drive people there very easily with a couple of clicks. Have your imagery ready, and also have ready any conditional content or personalized content that you would like to use in your email as well. We'll go through these examples as well. I'll put in some personalized content just to show you. Now, a newsletter in under 20 minutes or so seems pretty ambitious, but don't worry, it's not normal that you would be required, or that it's normal to design a newsletter in 20 minutes or less. But the reason we've done it this way for this particular session is that it's one of our most requested topics. And it means that we can showcase a whole bunch of useful functions within a fairly short space of time. Take the bits that you think will work for you and then use them in your next newsletter. We also, in our support article up here, or our support center, have links out to all these different sections. So if you want to learn how to put someone's first name in the subject line, we've got an article for that. If you want to learn how to use images in the image gallery, we've got a link for that, that kind of thing. So we've got articles that sort of show you all these different things we're pulling together today so that you can find them, learn more, and use the bits that you'd like to use. So of course, take your time, quality over quantity, but again, we're wrapping up lots of things in a short space of time. So what we're going to build today is start from this template and build out this newsletter here. I've now got 13 minutes left because I keep talking. So we'll see how I go for time. We're also going to personalize this little block here and make it so that those that are, in our case, gluten-free contacts who have joined our donut shop newsletter, they will see a different article in this block to everyone else. That's that personalization we're going to use because we know if someone's gluten-free, why don't we show them different information? So for our buttons and our introduction in the email, we're going to personalize based on the first name field that I have on my list. And then for swapping out the article, I'm going to use the dietary field that I have on my list for that. So have a think about what data do you have, what can you use, and then use it in your newsletter, your email, SMS, that kind of thing to make it perform a lot better than a generic version would. So I'm just going to come into my messages section in Vision 6, press new message. And normally you'd start here in the big template gallery. I've got some my templates that I've created already. You'll have this section as well where you can make your own templates. I'm going to use this one today. And here we go. This is a fairly simple template. Now what we can start doing is adding in the different blocks to build this up. So first, you might remember in our sample graphic, we had a header image at the top of the page. So I'm going to plop in an image there, double click on it. And now we are in the files and images gallery. And this is where you'd normally press upload and upload different assets and things into the system. But I've already got one here for my newsletter. So I'm just going to find the graphic. There it is, and insert that. Off it goes. Then next up, we had a little bit of an introduction to sort of welcome the person to the newsletter. Now, rather than having you sit there, watch me type, which is quite painful because I'm not the best typer, I've got all the content prepared earlier, as they say, and I'm just going to copy and paste that into the newsletter. So we just have a bit of an introduction there that I've copied and pasted in. Now what I can do is put in a few more text blocks. So I'm going to duplicate that 4 times because I've got 4 articles going down the page. So the next one was my little article about there being some new donut flavors. So I'm going to copy that text that that's been provided. Then I have another article talking about the recipe club. Then there's another article about catering. So I'm going to again copy and paste into the different text boxes, and then one to say that we do more than sweet food, we do savory food as well. There we go. Now, it doesn't look that nice at the moment, but it's sort of getting all the blocks ready to go, putting all the different bits and pieces in to create our email content the way we like. Next up, you'll see that, or you might remember if we go back to our little sample here, that we had these sort of headings in each of these 4 articles, and there's also a picture on top. So what I'm going to do is highlight the text and then choose heading 3. Now you might think, hang on, Andy, can't you just make it bold and make the font bigger? Doesn't that achieve the same thing? It does. However, by choosing heading 1, 2, or 3, it does something special in the background. It allows vision impaired users who use special software that reads out the email to them. It allows them to skip through different parts of the email to these headings. If you didn't use heading 1, 2, and 3, and you just made it bigger and bolder for the font, it wouldn't do that. So it's the code in the background that's doing something different. Visually, it looks the same, but in the background, it's doing a lot more if we use the heading 1, 2s, and 3s. So it definitely helps our vision impaired users. So worthwhile doing, of course. Next up, I'm now switching on this image toggle. So I'm clicking on the paragraph section where the text is, turning on the image, double clicking on it, and now putting an image in that spot. Now, what this does here is that it sort of like attaches the image to the side of the block that I'm working in. Now, you could just get an image block here and drag it next to the text, but by having it attached to it, by using the toggle here, what it does is it means that if I ever need to move this block of text around, the picture moves with it because they are together. Whereas if I didn't do that, I'd have to move the things separately. So it does have benefits to doing it that way, of course. Now what I'll do is I will center. So I've clicked on each one. I'll go to image and I'll center the graphic. Center. And center them all. Cool. And now I can put one next to the other to make columns. Now, normally I would go and do that for the second row of columns, but a little tip, what can happen is when you are putting 2 rows of columns, the height of the column above can affect the column below. Now, I've got a little support article which I'll show you. So here's this example. So here you can see these 4 columns, or this sort of grid that we've got here. And you can see that what's happening is because the text is really short up here, this block is creeping up, and these 2 photos are no longer aligned. You can stop that in Vision 6 by putting a spacer component across the page. That doesn't, or what that does is stops anything from creeping up above, kind of literally draws a line across the page, and you can make it white so it doesn't, isn't visible, and that stops that from creeping up. So in Vision 6, what we do is we get our spacer component, put it between where our 2 rows of columns are going to go, like that, and now we can keep going with our columns. So you'd put that between every single row. So if I was doing another 2 underneath here, so 6 in the grid of total, the total number, I'd put another spacer across there as well. Now you can make it a lot smaller, and you can change the color if you want to, but in my case, I'll leave it white so you can't really see that it's there. Awesome. Now what we can do is make the pictures a bit bigger. So if we click on the block and we go reset, that tells Vision 6, make the picture as big as it can be within the section that it's been provided with. So obviously you'll notice that we've got this nice kind of padding around the edges here. That's defined by the fact that we have in the content, we have padding turned on. So it's respecting that, which is a good thing. We want that sort of to be factored into our design. So that's all looking good there, with the image now being as wide as it can go. Also going back to our design, you'll note that there are these 2 buttons here and one at the bottom. So what we can do is back in our email, we can turn on the call to action button, and we can now link that through. So there's a link tool there. And what we'll do is just make it go to our home page for that one. And we can also change the text, of course, center it, maybe make it a little bit smaller, put some padding around it, and change the color to our purple branding. Same with this, turn on the button, select a link. Now this, just quickly, this article is talking about our recipe club, and we have another Vision 6 list, I'll show you in this other tab, called Recipe Club. What we want to do is link people from this email to this Join Our Recipe Club subscribe form, so that when someone clicks the button in the email, they go, oh, I want that recipe club. This form comes up, they fill it in, and then they become a new member on our recipe club list. That way, when we're sending out recipe club emails, we just send it to whoever's part of this list. So how do we tell this button to take the contact to that subscribe form that was on the screen before? What we do is we select the link. This time, instead of going to a website or something like that, is that you can go to a web form. That's referring to these forms over here that I showed you before in Vision 6. So we want to take them to that form. And the list was called Recipe Club. So I'll just find my Recipe Club list. There it is. And it's the subscribe form. Done. Pretty easy. We can put some text in there. Subscribe now. Again, center it. Put in some padding. It's a bit too wide, and change the color. And then underneath in our email, we had another button. This button was just across the page, so I'm not going to link it to an article. I'm not going to toggle this on, because then it will be just kind of linked to this. I want it to sit separately across the page. So for that, I just dragged in a button and put it there. And what have we got on the button? We'll say hungry, shop now. And again, just adjust the coloring there. Pretty good. Now, a couple of things you'll notice in this email is I've put this text, put first name here, so I remember to go and put the first name there instead of leaving that there. So how do you insert pieces of information that you know about your contacts into your email? We call those things wildcards. So here on this text editing bar, there's a wildcard drop down. We open that up and we choose which of the many fields that I have that we would like to put into the email. And this is going to be unique for each contact. So if the contact's called Adam, it'll say cooked fresh just for you, Adam. So I'll choose the first name field. But if in your contact list, or if you imported these contacts from a spreadsheet or whatever, if in that list you've got 20 different fields, date of birth, first name, last name, address, you can choose any of those fields to put into your email. But in my case, obviously it's first name. Insert that in. Now, the cool thing is you can actually copy this. So I'm going to press copy on my keyboard, and I'm going to use it on this button. So we'll go shop now, first name, and doing so will generally increase your engagement because, again, it's a personalized button. So we're putting the first name on the button. I did make it a little bit wider. Now, you might be thinking, hang on, that's a little bit not wide enough, Andy, what's going on there? But remember, not everyone's first name is going to be as long as that text. If my first name is Adam or Andy or Sue, then obviously that button is plenty wide to be able to fit a name like Sue or something. But that's looking pretty good. Now, the other thing we did have is you might remember that we would like to personalize this article for those that are gluten-free. And here's the example. So we've got a dietary field on our list, and in there, it's got anyone's dietary requirements if they've sort of ticked that box or filled it in when they originally signed up in our donut shop. And we've got some extra text and image and that kind of thing. But how do we make it so that our gluten-free readers see this extra text? Now, normally you might go, oh, we'll just make 2 emails. We'll send this to everyone who's not gluten-free, and then the other email we'll send to those that are. You could do that, but that would take a lot longer. So what you can do is actually make this a dynamic email. So I'll click onto this section. You'll notice we've got conditions over here. So I'm going to add a condition to that block. And now Vision 6 is asking, okay, what is the condition in which this change should appear? And for us, it's going to be if the, let me just choose the right list, customers, if the dietary is gluten-free. That's my condition. Now, nothing's really changed yet, especially over here. It's literally the same. But over here on the right, you'll see there's these 2 toggles now. Now, what this is allowing me to do is click into the different versions of my email that I've now created, or different versions of that block, I should say. It's still one email, but different blocks there. So now that I've clicked into the gluten-free variant of that article or section, I can now grab my gluten-free text and paste that in. So that's there. We've got the new text. We can also change the picture. So double click on the picture, opens up the gallery again. This time we'll choose our gluten-free donut photo. There we go. And you'll notice that the gluten-free text was a bit shorter than the non-gluten-free variant. So if I hadn't have used that spacer in there, this would have now crept up and started a bit higher, and these pictures would no longer be aligned. So a perfect example of why that spacer is really good. You may not have initially thought to add it in. You might have gone, well, the text was exactly the same height. You didn't really need the spacer. True. But remember, some people have different font settings, and then the amount of words per line will change, and that affects the display height, that kind of thing. So the spacer is really a good idea and is saving us there, which is fantastic. Great. So now we've got 2 versions of the article occupying the same space. And I could do the same here. I could do another one down here. I could do all kinds of different variants of your article. But one thing I will do also is click onto that. And why don't we change the button? We'll go shop gluten-free, and we'll link it to the gluten-free part of our store, on our online store, because why make it harder for the customer if we can take them straight to the page they need to go? Now, I'm just going to call mine test for the interests of saving time. I wouldn't recommend calling it test or an untitled 7. I've seen a lot of those. So give it a nice, good name that makes sense to you and your colleagues using the system. But just quickly, when you now preview the message, it previews it with your real contact data. So my first of the 8 contacts here, his name is Tom. You can see the word Tom on the button. Remember, we put the first name wildcard on the button. That's working there too. And I know Tom's gluten-free because he is seeing that version of the article. If I flick to contact number 2, Penelope is not gluten-free. And of course, the first name is working there as well. And that all is just replicated in mobile view. You'll see everything just works fine in the mobile view. And if I go back to Tom, button still works, gluten-free still works, that still works. So yeah, the preview is great because it actually previews it with your real live data, and you can make sure all your smarts, your dynamic content and wildcards are going to work before you press the send button. So there you go. That was a really quick look at how to build a newsletter in my case, 23 minutes. So apologies for going slightly over time, but hopefully that's brought together a lot of the different elements that you can use in your email design. Pick the ones that work best for you. If you've got time, try them all. It really will help your open rate and click-throughs if you personalize your message. When you go to send it to, you'll notice on the send screen, there's a way to A/B test the subject line. Try that as well, particularly for newsletters that go to your full list. It's a really great tool to allow you to see what's resonating with your contacts, whether it's other staff members in your company or external people if you're doing B2B or B2C outside of internal comms. It's a great tool to be able to see what works best with your customers and your contacts, because what you think may be a good subject line working more on a marketing or comms mindset may be completely not that interesting to those that are reading the email. So try 2 variants and see what works best, and then stick to a bit of a formula moving forward once you've seen the results. Well, thank you very much for joining today's session. I really hope you enjoyed it. My name's Andy. Have a great day.